Welcome back, everyone. We are on to week 11 of Reentry and Pathways to Desistance. Let's jump in. So, your learning objectives for this lesson. By the end, you'll be able to compare the components of the 5-key model for successful reentry with the ingredients that women describe as being necessary for successful reentry. You'll be able to identify and analyze the barriers that organizations and institutions face when delivering evidence-based reentry programs. You'll also develop 10 open-ended, thoughtful interview questions for a professional who works with reentrants to gain a real-world understanding of reentry initiatives and programming. And you'll be able to describe the experience of participating in reentry programs through the lens of an offender. So this week, we're going to be looking at what ingredients or components are necessary for successful reentry, both from the view of professionals and from the view of women who were previously incarcerated. So we'll look at what the differences are there and the similarities. What services are available for reentrants? You'll cover that in one of your readings this week. And then what barriers tend to stand in the way of individuals accessing these services? Again, you'll cover that through your readings. And finally, I wanted to end off in this module with some stories of hope from those who have successfully reintegrated back into society, because it isn't all doom and gloom. It doesn't all not work. There are things that work. There are those who can be successful. So we'll cover some of that in the week's readings. So you're going to read Just Like Baking a Cake, where women describe the necessary ingredients for successful reentry after being incarcerated. You'll read Intervention Development Study of the 5-key model of reentry, looking at an evidence-based or an evidence-driven prisoner reentry intervention. And then you'll read the Running Away Probation Revocation Programming in St. Louis County to see what works when we're talking about those who fail to report and subsequently typically end up having a revocation of their probation because they failed to report. So St. Louis County started doing something a little bit different. Then I want you to watch the Nicholas Creighton Firsthand Life After Prison video. Again, it's going to give you an idea of what we're talking about this week, looking at what ingredients were necessary for him to be successful. And then some extra videos for you to watch is the Berks Connections Pretrial Services Guest Speakers video. They are now known as Connections Works, but this is a program in Berks County that works directly with reentrants. They provide many different services, programming, and they also have some typically internship and job opportunities on their website. So while those that are mentioned in the video or at the end of it may not still be available, check out their website and see what they have. Then I put up the 5-key model for reentry for you to take a look at, and stories of hope and change. This was specifically out of a study that they did with the 5-key model for reentry participants. And then I put up the current services guide, which is actually put out by Berks Connections to give a list of all the different resources and services that are available for reentrants specific to Berks County. Just take a perusal through that services guide just to see all the different services that an offender would need upon reentering. And what are you going to do this week? So after you complete all those readings and videos, you're going to submit your week 11 quiz question and complete your week 10 quiz. You're also going to be submitting your experiential assignment part 1. So we're finally getting into this experiential assignment. So your first step with this assignment is going to be to identify what reentry program or department you want to research. And then you're going to develop interview questions for someone working in that either program or department. There's a list of different organizations and departments you can choose to use. You can also get creative and find others if you're aware of one out there that's not on the list. I just put a little list together to get you started. So what you need to do is consider what questions you're going to ask to better understand someone's transition from prison to society. So you may also want to know from that person what it's like to work with reentrants. What you don't want to do is ask questions that could easily be answered by reading their program or organization's website. So make sure that you do some research beforehand to have a good understanding of what services they provide, the population that they work with, and what they do. Because in the second part, you're actually going to be conducting the interview. So I recommend getting a head start, maybe in searching for an interview candidate as you're doing your research on the program. So for this specific assignment, part 1, what you're going to be turning in is a 1 paragraph providing a brief description on the program, department, organization that you chose, and in what way or ways they work with reentrants, right? So we're just linking up what program, organization, department you chose, and how they work with reentrants. Then you're going to develop and list 10 meaningful, open-ended questions that you can ask your interviewee in part 2. Make sure we remember that our open-ended questions start with why, what, how, or tell me about this. We don't want to ask yes or no questions because that's not going to give us much room to follow up. So that is your assignment for this week. If you are having trouble identifying what organization or program you want to use, feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about it. If you're considering possibly working with this type of a population, maybe you want to reach out to an organization that you might want to work for one day, because this could be a first step in making those connections with that place of possible employment, right? So make this work for you for future goals as well. All right, as always, if you have any questions, please reach out, phone, email. We can set up a time to meet on Zoom, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week.